Just check these settings here. Hey, everybody. Hope you can hear me. Yep, cool. Welcome to the Sunday International Big Book Workshop. I'm Dan. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Sobriety date 1st of February 21. This workshop is facilitated by Kemble. This study relies on you listening, but please we pray that you have your big book in hand and follow along with a pen or pencil and a highlighter. Make any notes you need and pause if you have to. Write down any questions and we'll take them at the end of the meeting. We will keep everybody muted during the workshop except for the facilitators. Any inappropriate behaviour will not be tolerated and you will be removed by one of the co-hosts. This meeting is being recorded. The audio portion only is being recorded, and only of the facilitators. The recording will be shut down at the end of the class before taking any questions in order to preserve your anonymity. Have a great meeting. And how we open this meeting is with a step 3 prayer found on page 63. Please join. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Over to you, brother.
All right, thank you, Dan. Great introduction as always. And welcome everybody to the Sunday International Big Book Workshop meeting. My name is Kimball. I am a recovered alcoholic. So welcome anybody new, anybody coming back, anybody that may be struggling, anybody we know may be struggling. We have a message to carry to the still suffering alcoholic. So this is a facilitated meeting, as Dan says. We simply go through the big book. We get out points and highlights. And if you got your pen and paper, it may be helpful to write some things down or underline or highlight or however you may want to do. And at the end of the meeting, it is open for any comments, any questions, or anything that may be on your mind. So today, me and my brother Dan, we talk sometime through the week, and I ask him different things. What do you think we may need to talk to? I depend on God and other people that's in this recovery line with me, because some things people can see that I can't see all the time. So I do take suggestions, right, on what some things we need to talk about. So we come to the conclusion that, interaction would be a great topic for today, and it's important in my recovery because, the big book always mentions the word action quite a few times in the big book, and then it always mentions faith without works is dead. So the action that we receive from taking the 12 steps, right? We had a spiritual awakening. That'd be step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. However, step 12 is not a stopping point. It is not a graduation point. We don't graduate from this thing called alcoholism. But we have been relieved of alcoholism. We have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So here on page 84, right in the big book, it says this, we have entered the world of the spirit, right? Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is action. We want to grow in understanding and effectiveness. The growing and understanding deals with spiritual growth. Effectiveness. We have been given the power today to help other alcoholics. So we simply help other alcoholics whenever we can. We practice these spiritual principles in all our affairs. And it starts in our homes, and it starts when we walk out of our home. It starts everywhere we go. We simply do our best to practice spiritual principles in everything. But is it easy? No, it's not easy. Well, how many of us find ourselves trying to live a spiritual way of life, and then somebody walks into your life and tries to ruin your day, your week, your month? Step 11 talks about the pause, right? So, and that's very important. We pause when we can. We ask God for the right thought or decision. But sometimes self will react before the pause. But that's a natural human instinct. When we feel offended, we have an automatic reaction, and it comes from some form of fear, right? Even though we have to master our fears, but still, we still have ourselves to live with. So we don't do this thing perfectly. That's very important to remember. We can't do it perfectly in this system. And then the big book says on 84 again, it says, this is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. No doubt about it. A real alcoholic like me, right? It took a lifetime for me to finally accept this program of recovery would work for me because I didn't believe that I was an alcoholic for a lot of number of years, though evidence showed me otherwise. I thought I was just a heavy drinker, a hard drinker, a continuous drinker. People called me an alcoholic way back in 1983, right? And somebody seen that maybe this guy needs Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, you know what I did? I went and I simply rebelled. I said, these people taking time out of my hour to drink alcohol, and they're not talking about nothing but more drinking. So what y'all gonna do for me? Y'all gonna help me supply my liquor habit when I run low? So that was my first perception of AA, right? 30, 40 years later, I come to the realization I can't do this crap alone. Alcohol simply was killing me because it was my master. I lived for alcohol, and I would die for alcohol. Had many near-death experiences in over 40 years of drinking. But when this program was finally presented to me, the program, let me share this. It's the difference between the fellowship and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, fellowship was just going to meetings. You used to hear people talking about meeting makers and make it. They can do it one day at a time. Just don't drink. Put the plug in the jug. Just don't go around people, places, and things. That would never sober me up. It made me drink more. The fellowship was giving me a watered down message. These things don't work for a real alcoholic of my type. See, I'm the type of alcoholic that's described on page 21. I'm the real alcoholic. And experience showed me I was. Then I had a copy of this book right way back in the early 80s. But that didn't solve my alcohol problem. I could read through the book one day. I finished reading the book and I simply pick up a drink. Well, let me try some controlled drinking. You know, the book it talks about, why don't you go out and try some controlled drinking, right? And I couldn't control it if you paid me $1 million. Because I was afflicted with an illness that I simply didn't know nothing about. So people calling me alcoholic, that wouldn't sober me up. This frothy emotion appeal did not work for me. Had a beautiful wife from out of high school. I got married in high school. A beautiful family. That didn't stop me from drinking. My religion didn't stop me from drinking. People telling me I was crazy didn't stop me from drinking. It made all these things made me drink more because I was still trying to prove to myself I'm not an alcoholic. I just like to drink. Going to jail didn't solve my alcohol problem. Treatment centers, detox centers, none of that stuff solved my darn alcohol problem. But you know what did? A power that was greater than myself. It solved my alcohol problem. So, and then on page 84, it says, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these things crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. No doubt about it. Then we discuss them with someone immediately. But, you know, during my drinking career, I simply couldn't do that because I was still rooted in selfishness and self-centeredness. The whole world revolved around me. Me. Alcohol, alcohol, alcohol. I'm the boss. You are lower than me. Because, you know, I thought I was all powerful, almighty. But, you know, like I like to say, a lie detector determined, Kim, you don't have no power. You are the problem. And that was told me the truth that I was the problem. This program showed me that I was the problem. So today I would like to talk about interaction, right? I mentioned that this process must continue for a lifetime. So it brings me to a point on page 19, right? Anybody got your big books? You can go to page 119. And I'm gonna read a short sentence, Dan, and then we can proceed along with the meeting. So page 19, first full paragraph, down on the third sentence, it reads, we feel elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. Now remember, it's the beginning. When we stop drinking, it's just the beginning. But I remember the years I tried to stop drinking on my own because I was obsessed with myself, right? I couldn't eliminate drinking. But this process, this 12-step program, it simply to solve my alcohol problem. But I had to take all the steps. Now, don't get me wrong. I had to do some work. It's God the one that had to remove my problem, my alcoholic problem. So then it goes on to relate. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we are going to describe. And it describes the rest of this on page 19, because page 19 gives us, this is the chapter on there is a solution. So we'll fast forward to page 72, and I want to cover some points and highlights on it. Page 72. And then if you will, read the first paragraph.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Yeah, better.
Chapter 6, Interaction, page 72, everybody. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do with it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way that the trouble is, we have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the fifth step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter.
Okay, thank you, brother. And the step they was talking about would be found in How It Works. That's the preceding chapter. But note though, in this step, right, it says the exact nature of our wrongs. But here's a narrative. Bill uses the word defects, right, for step 5. And a little later on in step 6, as we'll see, he uses all the things we have admitted that are objectionable. Then in step 7, instead of using shortcomings, he uses defects of character. So he used those words in the steps, but here in the narrative, you know, he was not concerned where those words fall. People had always asked Bill, well, what's the difference between a wrong, a defect, and a shortcoming? So Bill said it doesn't make any difference what you call them. They are all the same. But, you know, Bill was a prolific writer, so he used different words to mean the same thing. See, we all suffer from these defects of character. We all suffer from all these things that will be blocking us from the sunlight of the Spirit. So here on in this paragraph, it says, we have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator. This will be starting in step 2, right? When we start to come to believe in a power greater than ourselves that could restore us to sanity. This is a new beginning. Now, we done smashed the delusion in step 1 that we could be like other people, present and maybe. That delusion had to be smashed, right? So when we fully admitted we were powerless over alcohol, we did that. Then we realized we couldn't stop ourselves from drinking. At least I know I couldn't stop myself, period. No matter how hard I tried, no matter all the simple solutions that I tried, it simply didn't work. So when we come to believe in this Creator, and it gives us an idea that we can discover the obstacles in our path. So we have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained a rough way what the trouble is. No, our troubles we think are basically of our own making, and it basically was. I can look back on my inventory in my step 5s and 6s and 7s through 9. All the trouble was created by me. And when somebody retaliated, I retaliated even worse. But you know, I started this thing. I never had a problem with nobody just starting stuff with me because I mean already started it. So it was quite natural for them to want to say something or retaliate, and then I get resentments on them, right? But after I sobered up and took the steps, I realized, hell, I was wrong in all these things. It was me. Everything was my fault. So then it says, we have ascertained in a rough way what our trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Step 4, inventory. We listed these things. We we have to meditate on these things and come to the realization, well, am I the problem? Or is this person the problem? Or is that person the problem? Well, you know, we may run into some people that we don't even know, and they may automatically have a problem with us, right? But these things are not our fault. So, but then an alcoholic, we be rooted in selfishness, sentences, we get resentments, we get hatred sometimes for people. You know, in my drinking career, that's the way it was. We run into people we don't like. They don't like us, and then we turn around and don't like them. But the attitude still was always based on self, right? So what? Again, it says, now, these are about to be cast out. And that brings me to another thought. When these are certain attitudes and things, they're about to be cast out. Brings me to page 46, right? The last paragraph on page 46. And it starts with much to our relief. And Dan, if you will, you can read that paragraph in full. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Last paragraph on page 46, everybody. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make an approach and to effect a contact with him. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe, underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. To us, the realm of the spirit is broad, roomy, and all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men.
Yeah, no doubt. Thank you, Dan. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe, or whatever you want to call it, it talks about God, right? We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. This comes from another big book I studied called the Holy Scriptures, right? But this is not a religious meaning. This is a spiritual meaning. I just share my God, the God of my understanding is called Jesus Christ. And I pray nobody gets offended at it, because we never apologize for who we believe in. So I never try to judge anybody on what power they believe in. I'm just simply sharing the power that I believed in, the power that saved my life. So then it goes on to mention to us the realm of the spirit is broad, it's roomy, it's all inclusive, right? Never exclusive or forbidden to those who earnestly seek. So it is open, we believe, to all men. The thing is, God is almighty, he is all powerful, and he's the power that's greater than I am. I didn't have the power myself to stop myself from drinking. So these ideas that we had and we got wrote down in our inventory. Okay, I'm gonna go back to page 72. Still in the first paragraph, it says, now, when these things are about to be cast out of our personal inventory, right? This requires action on our part. Note, action is found 52 times in the big book, the word action. So that's why we're talking about interaction today, because we always have some action to do in this process that we go through. We done had the recipe laid out to us, and we who have recovered from alcoholism, we are simply miracles of mental health, right? So then it says when it's action and when it's completed, we mean. Now we just step 5, right? We have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. So this brings us into the 5th step in the program of recovery. No doubt about it. And it's right after we do the reading and how it works. So, and it's important because, you know, during my drinking career, I realized I had a whole lot of defects, right? And then I used to try to do the steps myself, and I read them on the wall. I think I didn't did this, that step, right? But that wasn't the AA program of recovery. The AA program of recovery is found in the first portion of this book, and then it includes the spiritual appendix in the back. You know, and includes all the prefaces. People used to tell me just read 160 for the first 164 pages, right? Well, we know in the first edition, page 1 started out and be a story. So they weren't giving me the full program of recovery, which is outlined in this book. The title page was very important in the preface. Then we got the forward to the forward to the fourth, the 1, 2, 3, and fourth edition. We have to cover these things, and we have the doctor's opinion, which is a game changer in my life, because that made me to see that I couldn't solve my own problem with this alcoholism. Alcoholism was way above my pay grade, and without a solution, I was going to continue to drink. Because we have two alternatives at this point, right? We can choose to live a spiritual way of life, accept spiritual help, or we can be doomed to an alcoholic death. I've lost a lot of my friends over the past 3 years due to this illness that we suffer from. They did not have a solution. They did not want to accept the solution, and they end up dying. It's heartbreaking, but true. And it hurts my heart. And when I reach out and try to help people that they don't accept it because they still think, well, I can do this on my own. And I explain to them I can do it on my own. Y'all know my history, 42 years of drinking and over 40 years in and out the fellowship trying to do this on my own. It never worked until alcohol had me dead for that last time. And I realized, oh my God, I can't do this. So we'll continue on. Then on page 72, we read the next paragraph where it goes, this is perhaps difficult. Yeah,
sure, no problem. Second paragraph, page 72, everybody. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first. If we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty, in the sense we find it necessary, until they told someone else all their life story.
All right. Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much. Now you notice the last sentence. It says until they told someone else all their life story, right? So now this statement, right, it probably could mess some people up in the beginning because and that was in step 4. We got to sit here and tell somebody my whole life story. How can I do that, right? Because a lot of things that we alcoholics, we like to hold on to stuff. We don't want nobody else to know about it, right? But the truth of the matter is God knew about it. So we need to discuss these things with another person, right? So then we can begin to write our whole story. But as we have seen, as Bill mentioned in one of his readings, right, he said 95% of our life story doesn't really have anything to do with our drinking. No, what we did in life is what we did in life. It wasn't the cause of our drinking. We simply drank until we became afflicted with an illness. We became afflicted with an allergy of the body and then a malady of the mind. See, the problem of the alcoholic is it centers in his mind. But so what does have something to do with drinking, it comes from our resentments, our fears, and the harms that we did to other people, right? Because I know in our drinking careers, we heard a lot of people. We resented people till we wanted to kill them. We was fearful of a lot of things. In my experience, I was fearful of everything. I was fearful of living. I was fearful of dying. I was fearful of my phone ringing or somebody knocking on my door, thinking it might be somebody want to come kill me for what I did to them the night before, because I don't even have no recollection of it, right? When we black out, we don't have no recollection. And waking up the next morning, I was at one place when I went to sleep, and then I woke up somewhere else, sometimes not knowing where I was at. That's a fearful thing. And then not knowing how you got from point A to point B. So in this point, you know, if I'm listening to my resentments, right, uh, and I'm listening to my entire life story as it pertains to resentments, if I list all my fears, I am listing my life story as far as fear. If I list all my harms done, then I am listing my life story as far as the harms gone is done. It is those things that really count. So we simply have to look deep into ourselves. We look at the fears we have, and we have to master these fears, or else, you know, it can put us in a dangerous position. When how you may ask, well, how can we master these fears? How can we master these resentments, right? We simply have to believe in that power that's greater than ourselves. We talk to him. And the big book talks about God many times uh, throughout the big book. So we simply depend on something that's greater than us, right? Because myself, it couldn't stop these fears, it couldn't stop the resentment. Not whatsoever. It just made me drink again. And then it made me drink again and again. Then when I think about the resentment, I drank some more. When I thought about these fears, I simply drank more because I was relying on self. Self was my biggest problem in the whole world. So, and then it goes on to say on page 72, we said perhaps this is quite difficult, especially discussing these things with another person, right? Yeah, because we tend to want to hide things, like I say, from the world. But at this point, if you're as seriously as alcoholic as I was, I needed to go through this process, right? Because if I didn't, I was going to surely be to drink again. I was going to drink again. If I held on to something that needed to be that I needed to be relieved of, God had to humble me down, right? And he showed me, or exactly the book showed me what I need to do about it. And it says in actual practice, we usually find that a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Well, yeah, let me share this with you. About 10 years ago, I wrote a 4th step, right? But you know what I talked to it about? I talked to me about it. I know God heard me, right? But I wasn't talking to him. I was talking to me on this list. I wasn't finna talk to nobody else. So I sat there in my living room and I went over this pages and pages of the list that we have: character defects, shortcomings, people that done harm. But you know what? I drank right shortly after that, like the same night or the very next day. I think it was the same night. See, I simply didn't understand. So I need to take it to God. But back then, I thought I was God. I thought I had the power to do this on my own, right? But I couldn't do it. I don't give a darn how hard I tried. I put God out the picture. Well, I'm God now. So, but you see, but this made me drink again. But then, the beautiful part about it, when God humbled me down, so that I realized I need to go through these steps. I need to do this. I need to do that. And you know, the big book says it's a suggested program of recovery, right? But look, there are many musts in the big book as well. So it was a lot of these things that became a must for me, because if I didn't take it as a must, I would have drank again. A suggestion is a suggestion. And I'm going to be honest with you, I ain't like following suggestions in my drinking day, because I always had the suggestion. Your suggestions didn't matter. So these things became must for me. So here on page 72 and 73, right, it says, now, you know, I'm going to take my personal inventory to another human being, someone that is not involved in my personal life, who can look at this thing from an outside view, right, and help provide a truthful picture from the things that I can't see. Because an alcoholic that was self-centeredness and self-centered like I was, I couldn't see the truth. I couldn't distinguish the truth from the false. I didn't know what was true. I didn't know what was false, right? Because I was going from an inside view. But when I could sit here and I could talk to God and to another human being, we all three in connection together, then they could point out these things that I couldn't see in myself. And you know, this helped me in my recovery as well when I was going through this process. Because if I kept being based on self and only having my point of view of anything, my opinions and things, oh, it wouldn't have worked. But you know, thank God this process did work. See, my own opinions couldn't change the fact that I had become a real alcoholic and that I needed spiritual help. I was doomed. So that's the only alternative I had. So, but that other human being helped me to look at myself, and it helped because it was a different point of view. It was an outside point of view, and it basically woke me up to see, well, this person is right. Now, he just showed me something about myself because I was rooted in myself. When them things could be pointed out to me, wow, what a difference it made. It's a game changer, no doubt about it. So, you know, and it's a good confession for the soul, right? We can sit there, we can confess to God our sins. We can sit here and talk about this with another person as we go through the list. Now my sponsor, when we did my fifth step, when I did my fifth step with him, his job was to sit there and just listen at me till I got through. So I talked for quite a long time. So he's sitting there being patient. And as I was talking, he could point out things that I might have still been self-rooted in. And you know what? That made me see a different side of things. Gave me a new point of view. You know, well, yeah, okay, thank you. And that helped. That really did a lot for me. So in other words, I'm just telling you, he helped me truthfully look at myself. Man, I know it did. So, you know, it helped. In my recovery to share the resentments, the fears, it got a load off of my mind when I could look at the harms I did to other people, because I knew I harmed a lot of people, but I could not see I was wrong, because I always thought I was right for harming these people, right? But I was wrong. I was in the wrong. So, but then people may ask, what's the real purpose of step 5, right? So the real purpose from step 5 is to learn all I can about myself, right? And to truthfully see the things that I need to work on and change in the future. Left to my own resources and will, right? I simply couldn't do it. So I needed this. And this step, it woke me up, man. I'm just gonna tell you. I began to have a spiritual experience at this point. Getting out of self that was the greatest obsession that I had during my past. Always obsessed with self. Self can do this, self can do that, and self always kept me drunk, locked up, or wherever. Kept me in psych wards, mental institutions, everything else in the world. Self. So, back on page 73, I'm gonna share this right quick. And it says, more than most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor, right? To the outer world, he presents a stage character. This is the one he likes his fellas to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. Yeah, we want to play the role, right? Us alcoholics we got to play the lead in everything. So we act one way in front of these set of people, we act a different way in front of them set of people. The people over here, we don't want to see the real side of us, the darn alcoholic and miserable and crazy side we was on. So we trying to live two lives. One when we may be sober for a few hours or a few days, and then we live that second life, which is our drinking life. And then we look at the people we hurt and all of this crap. See, but we don't want certain people to know these things. But in our hearts, we know we did it. And we scared we're going to be exposed, right, from the way we acted. But see, our behavior problems don't make us alcoholic. But we can be, I know I behaved crazy for 42 years. But that didn't make me an alcoholic, right? So I was trying to enjoy both sides of the fence. It could be, and I had to come to realize that God either is or he isn't. My old ideas didn't work, right? But the God idea really did. So, and then it talks about the inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees, right? Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. Vaguely remember. This is the blackout days I'm sure a lot of us went through, right? So, like I said a few minutes ago, sometimes I go out drinking, I wake up maybe sometime at home, sometime I wake up somewhere else. Now that's a darn nightmare. But then I'm trapped in fear. Who did I hurt last night? Who did I cuss out? Who did I jump on? Who did I push down? Who did I call out of their name? And this brings great fear on us because if you don't remember, you don't remember. And then you become fearful, scared of the police knocking at the door or somebody knocking at the door wanting to get back at you for what you did to them. So then the paragraph goes on to mention he trembles to think someone might have observed him. And believe it or not, somebody observed it because somebody going to eventually tell us about it here pretty soon. And then we can be embarrassed, right? Then we become fearful again. Oh, man. So then that puts us in more tension, fear and tension, as page 73 brings out. He is under constant fear and tension. That makes for more drinking. No doubt about it. And that's what it did. If I'm so fearful of things, I'm going to drink. If I'm tense about something, I'm simply going to drink. So this page here is from the way the book was originally written. See, I do a lot of I like to study the very first portion that was brought out in 79 39. Anyways, the little red book. So when this book was originally written, right, they didn't have no sponsors to go to, right? It was one person carried a message to another. So, and then, the word sponsor is actually not written in the big book, but into being. So Bill was giving suggestions, right? Suggestions, that word suggestions again, as to who to do this step with, right? So we think it is important that we find one person who has done the work as outlined in this book. See, today we had this book. Back then, like I said, it could be mouth to mouth, and then when they started getting the book written, they had to either take copies to somebody because we didn't have the access that we have today to this program of recovery. So the main thing, though, is being knowledgeable is our inability to be honest with ourselves. That was the problem. Now we done gained knowledge about where we were dishonest in all our affairs, right? And then they can be objective and this other person, like I said, they can help us point out our shortcomings, our defects and stuff like that. And this is another game changer for me. So, but then here on this, then on the bottom of page 73, the last sentence, you can read to the next paragraph here, where it says we must be entirely honest.
Yeah, of course.
Bottom,
Yeah. Thank you. Bottom of page 73. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose to put the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination which require confession must, and of course will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk to someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics.
Okay, thank you, brother. It says we must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long and happily in this world. So being honest, with myself, being honest with another person, being honest with God, that makes a big difference. It's a game changer as well. So the blame game, when we started blaming other people for our problems, we had to smash this delusion. Other people weren't the cause of our problems, right? I used to blame every situation in my life. And then that made, I would go drink behind it. I blame other people for my drinking, and then I come back and blame them for something else, and I go back drinking again. The people wasn't the problem. Hell, I was the problem. So, but this blame game had to be stopped. I had to look at myself and see what was deep within me, where I was wrong. And all these things, after admitting these wrongs, discussing them with another person, it simply freed me. It made a big difference in my life. So this is a beautiful portion of this process here. Because here, like, I'm gonna fast forward to page 75 right quick. And then this is one of the most magical pages in the big book, page 75, right? Because this will be the beginning of a whole new idea, a whole new deal, right? Because and it's grounded between steps 5 and step 6, right? This is a gift from God, as I have to call it. There are only things you can do with a gift, right? You can take it and make it yours, or and be eternally grateful, or you can throw away what you believe to be the greatest gift that God gave to humanity. Humanity is right there on page 75. So at the top of 75, it says, when we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. I hear some people say they work on step 5 for 2 or 3 years. No, we don't do that. If we take too long, if we take months to do it, in between, we just being in between drinks instead of being relieved from these things that was blocking us from a power that was greater than us. This simply blocks access if we still stuck on self. So, we got the written inventory. We prepare for this long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. And one key element that I forgot to touch on, if we skip this vital step, it can cause us to drink again, no doubt about it, because we would still be baffled with these things that are inside of us. So on page 75, right, there's some promises that I'd like to discuss, right? Actually, there's 10 promises here on page 75. And it says, and Bill, as we know, right, Bill is constructing a spiritual art through which we will walk a free person, right? So we all can be free today by the definition of the big book, which says, freedom is doing what I have to do because I want to do it. There isn't anything in this world I have to do if I don't want to do it, as long as I'm willing to pay the price, right? Because I want to do it. That's freedom. I was trapped in bondage in my alcoholism. I don't know about y'all, but I was in a prison. The prison was in my mind. The prison was in my body. I could not move forward. I was locked in, and I like to describe it as being myself, personal experience. I was trapped in a deep pit, and I had no way out. I couldn't pull myself out. I had to have some help. Somebody had to help come pull me out of this thing. But first, self-centeredness had to be removed. Yeah, that was my problem. So here on page 75, Dan, there's 10 promises, but you can start where it says we pocket our pride, right? And we can finish the page.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Still on 75, everybody. Second paragraph. We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe.
Okay, you can finish the next paragraph.
Cool.
And we go from there. Huh?
Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we admitted anything. For we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundations? Have we tried to make mortar without sand?
Okay, thank you, brother.
Cool.
Yeah. Now, these are just some of the promises in the big book, right? There's a lot of promises in the big book. As a matter of fact, I have a list of them. The last count I had was 176, but there are more. So it goes on to say on page 75, we pocketed our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. So we simply take our whole inventory. We don't want to hide nothing. We want to let it all out, right? And we are delighted. So here's the promise. We can look the world in the eye. That's the promise. We don't have to hold our head down no more. We don't relieve ourselves of the things that was truly blocking us from making spiritual progress today. We can be alone in perfect peace and ease, right? And then in the promises on what page 83 and 84, it says we will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. It goes on to say we will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace, right? So we can look the world in the eye. We can be alone in perfect peace and ease, no doubt about it. So our fears fall from us. It's another promise. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. Another one. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we have begin to have a spiritual experience. This is another promise. Remember, on the title page of the big book, it says Alcohol Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men have recovered from alcoholism. Well, how do we recover from alcoholism? We take the steps, we have this spiritual experience, and it turns into a promise right here. But now you have begun to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly, no doubt about it. See, we are not being cocky or we are not being afraid. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed, right? The drink problem has disappeared. We feel you're on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe, walking hand in hand. When we let these things go, we can gain a relationship. See, the purpose of this is to pursue a relationship with power that's greater than ourselves. And it works hand in hand. There is no doubt about it. It says, and you may not realize, right, when it says the feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly, and then it says all fears will fall from us. And look, we may not even realize this until sometime later in our sobriety. But when you get up the courage to do something which used to terrify you, then you will find out that the fear has been removed from you. It's a process, right? Sometimes people will see it quickly, sometimes people will see it slowly. But you know, oftentimes other people will see these things, these changes in you before you will. I know that happened, you know, in my drinking career when I entered recovery. Other people could see some changes in me that I couldn't see in myself. I just knew things was a little different. I felt different. I reacted to life in a different way. And actually, the feeling of my drink problem, it disappeared overnight. Over 3 years ago, 1st of February, I took my last drink of 2020. The thought of drink hadn't really popped up in my head again, but sometimes you may get an old threadbare idea, oh, a good old drink now would help. But you know, simply if it's a thought, it comes and it goes immediately. Something, I don't dwell on it no more. It's just, you know, I'm a recovered alcoholic. So, but I can't never say that it don't never pop up because we all gonna, I mean, I drank for 42 years. So believe me, every now and then something may come in. Someone's trying to talk to me and say, well, what about a good old drink now? It might make you feel better. The answer is simply no, I can't do it. I know I'm an alcoholic. I done took the steps and I had an awakening. But see, we do fight a battle, right? This battle is simply spiritual. We deal with a spiritual battle, Pete, and that's the bottom line. But the power that's greater than us, it solves all our problems. So it's really not a battle. Thoughts gonna come and go. That's part of the human condition. We live, we breathe, we think, right? So, but the important thing, now, still on page 75, it says, you will begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. You will begin to feel we are on a broad highway walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Now, at this point, we would have brushed the face of God, and by now we should have gained established a conscious contact with the power greater than ourselves. No doubt about it. And it's all right here in this page 75. Conscious contact with God. That is a beautiful thing. I had this experience. I don't know how many of us have had this experience, but I certainly did. And it commenced to allow me to have spiritual growth because that's simply who I talk to all the time. The Lord or the heavens above. Like I said, his name is Jesus. That's my God, my Lord. I don't have a problem with whatever anybody else's conception is, but it's just mine. I don't preach my religion in this meeting, but it is simply spiritual. It's a relationship with him. And then, back in on page 164, it says, make sure your relationship with him is right. And great events will come to pass for you and countless others. So that's the first and best relationship in my life today. And it happened by going through this process laid out in this big book. So, as long as I keep a conscious relationship with him, all my problems will be solved. They may not be solved in my time because I'm not the one to master time. He is the director, I'm just the agent. So he is the father, I'm just a child. So by following some simple directions laid out in this book, it gives us these lifestyle changes, man. And there's no doubt about it. But then some of us may ask, right? He said, well, for God's sake, hurry on. Let the test come before you are ready. See, some people may not feel it immediately, or we might not realize it until a year or two after sobriety, or maybe even longer. But yeah, we think God is taking his time. We have to realize he's already did the work, right? So boom, boom, boom. No doubt about it. I love it. So then at the bottom of 75, it says, after talking to my sponsor and God, right? It says, returning home, we found a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done, reviewing what we just done. That brings us back to how it works, right? On page 59. Yes, on page 59. And now we go back through the first 5 steps where it says, 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another being the exact nature of our wrong. That's the first 5 proposals in this 12-step program. So we thank God from our heart that we have become to know him better. Wow, no doubt about it. So then there's some questions we can ask as well. So we ask if we have omitted anything. For we are building an arch to which we shall walk free man at last. And I think, Dan, that you put the stones that build this ark, I think you put that in the chat. So it'd be imperative to write these things down, take your little note of it on the page numbers where Bill builds that ark. I do have a copy of this ark, which whoever's in the Facebook group that we have, Recovered Alcoholics group, I posted on there the whole thing, and to give the page numbers and everything. Which one of these days I'm gonna talk about that art specifically. What day we into action? So then it says our work solid so far. Have we done what the book has asked us to do up to this point, this very point to where we are at now? Are the stones properly in place? Well, the stones start on page 12, as a matter of fact. Then it goes on to page 17. Then it goes on to page 47. And then there's page 62. And now we're on page 75. So Have we skimped out on the cement put into the foundation? So we ask ourselves this question as well. Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Boom. And this is solidified in step 11, right? Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. No doubt about it. Simply relying on God instead of myself. So, just a little note that I jotted down, right? Yesterday is lost and gone forever, while tomorrow is but a guess. Who knows if we'll even be here tomorrow? So, what is real, right? It is the here and the now. And here and now is all we possess. As in the promises, right, that I shared a while ago. We would not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it, right? The past is gone. It's behind us. It ain't coming back. Tomorrow hadn't got here, so who knows what tomorrow may bring. The truth of the matter is live in the present, this moment, this very moment. And that helps me through my days. See, by doing this step 5, I ain't got to worry about the past no more. And actually it's solidified from step 4 through 9, right? During this process, we make amends eventually when we get to step 9, which in my experience, I've done all the steps. I've had my spiritual awakening. I've been given the power to help others. I've been granted a daily reprieve, which is a stay of execution from a death sentence of an alcoholic death. Because if I drink again, peeps, I know I would drink again. So it's not worth me ever trying. But when God removes, let it stay removed. No use in bringing the problem back on that He done removed, because He's almighty, all powerful, not me. So, and I thank Him for it. I thank God for doing for all of us what we could not do for ourselves. And I just looked at my clock, and it's 3 o'clock my time. It's time to move on. Anyway, I won't hold you much longer, but I thank everybody for being here. I hope somebody got something out of it. So, anybody here today that be here next week, we'll be doing starting on top of page 76. We're gonna continue into action for probably the next 2 weeks, right? And then after that, we'll come up with something else. But right now, I feel interaction is very important. Suggested by my good friend, and it's something beautiful to touch on. We see the point of the spiritual experience here on page 75, and that's the key. That's the solution for our alcoholism. Having had a spiritual experience, right? We become new people. So always, I'd like to share something before I close. Back in the spiritual experience, it's something I like to share with everybody. Basically, every meeting I do, because it hit home. It made it's a game changer in my life. So on page 567, right, bottom paragraph, it reads, "What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource, which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness." So I'm going to skip a little short paragraph, and then it said, "We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable." Now I flip the page back to the top paragraph on the spiritual experience, appendix 2. And it says the term spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which upon careful reading shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. So I thank God. I thank everybody for attending today. I pray somebody got something that they can use. And Brother Dan, thank you for your help as always. Love you, my brother. and you can close the meeting when you feel.